Kurt is a 15-year-old boy from a village hidden in the mountains that no one has ever heard about. He always wanted to be an adventurer, so he came to the city and joined an S-rank adventure party, but only as their errand boy. While the other members of his party fight against powerful monsters, he gets knocked out even before the fight begins. Despite this, he is proud that he is a member of a party that is hailed as heroes by everyone until one day his party members tell him that he is fired. Kurt is aghast to hear this shocking news and asks what he did wrong, and the party leader tells him that he didn't do anything at all and that is the problem. According to the laws of this world, there can only be 4 members in a party and they need to fire him to make space for a high-ranking mage who will actually help them. Kurt tries to plead with the party leader to let him stay, only to get kicked in the guts and knocked out, making him realize that he is living the cliché story of the loser who is kicked out of the hero's party. Luckily, he doesn't keep whining about it and immediately reaches the temp agency in the next city to look for a job. Just as he enters the agency building, he meets an overexcited receptionist who immediately starts interviewing him for a job. She is surprised to learn that he was just fired from the party that was promoted to SS rank recently. Kurt gets depressed talking about it, but the receptionist cheers him up by saying that this will look great on his resume. After that, she takes him for an aptitude test to see if he has any hidden skills, but he gets a G for all the combat-oriented skills. Kurt is even more disheartened and the receptionist tells him that the guy who can test his non-combat skills will come back next week. Kurt meekly tells her that he is flat broke right now, and the receptionist decides to give him another chance. She tells him to pick up a sandbag lying in the corner. And as Kurt does it, he finds the sand sucking in his mana. The bag starts growing incredibly heavy, and the receptionist tells Kurt to drop it. She tells him that since he has basic fitness and strength, he can do construction work to earn some money, and Kurt is glad to take up the offer. He goes to the construction site where a grumpy guy looks at his resume and then at his twink-like body before agreeing to give him a job because they are extremely short-staffed. He tells Kurt that his task is to mix cement and repair the city walls with it. And if he can't use half a barrel of cement in 3 hours, he will be fired. The man leaves without waiting for any questions, and Kurt decides to put magic in the cement to make it stronger since it was common sense in his village. 3 hours later, when Grumpy returns to check on him, he is dumbfounded to see that Kurt has fully plastered 30% of the wall on his side and used up all the cement available to him. He can't believe that a noob can do all this in 3 hours. But Kurt takes his shocked reaction as anger and apologizes. However, Grumpy tells him to come to work for as long as he can and hands out his entire purse to Kurt, saying that he will send the rest of his payment over to the temp agency. Within 3 days, Kurt finishes plastering half the wall around the city by himself, causing panic amongst the rest of the workers. Grumpy notices this and tells Kurt that he doesn't have to come to work from tomorrow because if he does that, there won't be anything left for those who need the money more than him. He gives him the rest of his payment and tells him to find work that fits his abilities better in the royal capital. But like any other self-doubting loser, Kurt thinks that Grumpy is saying all this only to send him away. He goes to the temp agency and tells the receptionist that he lost his job when suddenly they hear a tanned beauty arguing with another receptionist about a job offer. Kurt's receptionist decides to talk to the girl named Yulia who needs a miner to explore a mountain, but she will pay them only if they can find something valuable. The receptionists tell Yulia that her offer is not reasonable, but Kurt is desperate enough to ask her to hire him because he has done some mining work back in his village. The receptionist warns him that there's a good chance that he will be paid, and even the girl says that she is looking for a strong dwarf and not a twink. However, she doesn't have any money to hire a dwarf. So, she agrees to take Kurt with her. As Kurt leaves, the receptionist begins to fantasize about hiring him to be her submissive boy toy. When suddenly, her colleague tells her that the construction boss has sent a check for Kurt's remaining payment. The receptionist is flabbergasted when she sees that he has been paid 200 gold coins and she trips on the sandbags. Her colleague helps her up while telling her that these are no ordinary sandbags, but special devices to measure a person's magic capacity. But only people who are on the level of a royal mage can activate them. The receptionist decides to move the sandbags out of the way, but they don't even react to her, and she remembers how heavy they were when Kurt tried to lift them, making her wonder how strong he really is. On the other hand, Yulia takes Kurt to her base on the mountain and tells him that they are going to sleep in the same tent tonight. Kurt gets flustered because he won't be able to control himself sleeping next to a cute girl, and Yulia goes crazy because he is the first guy who ever called her cute. After rattling him for trying to butter her up, she gives him his dinner, which is just a boiled potato. But Kurt still finds it delicious because it has been a very long time since someone else cooked for him. After that, they sleep in the same tent, and Kurt feels his sword rising as he sees Yulia completely defenseless. However, being a gentleman and a wuss, he goes outside to rub a quick one out and then sleeps there. Turns out that Yulia was just testing him to see if she should choose him over a bear, and she gets rised up by his character and cute looks. The next morning, she finds Kurt sleeping outside and then notices that he repaired her coat last night, too. While she is marveling at his abilities, Kurt wakes up. So Yulia gets to business and tells him that they need to earn 10 gold coins by the end of the week. However, she has no idea how to actually find something valuable in the mountain. But luckily, Kurt has got her covered. He uses his knowledge to quickly find a rock with crystals inside them that are worth 3 gold coins. And Yulia can't believe her eyes. In just a couple of hours, Kurt gathers a lot of crystals, but he tells Yulia that they won't sell for much since they are too small. And that is why he decides to turn them into magic crystals. Yulia is shocked because craftsmen who can do that are incredibly rare. But Kurt has finished processing one before she even has the time to complain. She is shocked because it takes an hour to make even a small magic crystal. And this surprises Kurt as he begins to think about the masters who can use magic for a full hour and not get tired. Yulia knows that they are not on the same page here, but she lets Kurt work on the magic crystals. Once he is done, she decides to go to the city to sell them, but Kurt opts to stay back so that he can explore the mountain a bit more. Yulia goes to the night station and shows them the magic crystals. When they ask her about the documents of origin of the crystals, she shows them a pendant and the knight's freak out because the pendant means she is an adventurer working directly for the royal family. They immediately grant her the permission to use the teleportation device to go to the royal capital, unaware that Yulia no longer works for the royal family. Now once she reaches the capital, Yulia goes to her friend Mimiko to sell the magic crystals. At first, Mimiko says that the crystal is not worth much because it is not glowing too much. But when she examines it closely, she offers to buy the single piece for 10 gold coins. Yulia is dumbfounded by this price, so Mimiko explains that the magic crystals have 10 times the mana inside them, and they don't even glow too much because they are not leaking any. Yulia tells her that she has 49 more of those, and Mimiko buys all of them from her instantly. Once the deal is done, she asks Yulia about the person who made the crystals, but she refuses to reveal Kurt's identity without his permission. Even when Mimiko uses her status as the royal court mage to command Yulia, she stands her ground. In the end, Mimiko asks Yulia to make sure that whoever made the crystals doesn't go to another country, and also to tell him that he can get a noble rank in the position of a court mage if he agrees to serve the kingdom. Yulia agrees to her but starts freaking out as soon as she leaves the shop. She returns to the other city the next morning and immediately goes to the job agency to inquire about Kurt. The receptionist tries hard to protect his identity, but Yulia uses the royal pass to read his file. She is shocked to know the things he has already done and then commands the receptionist to never share any information about Kurt to anyone else. She then deposits the entire amount she got from selling the crystals in Kurt's name and then heads to the mountain to check up on him. To her utter surprise, Kurt has built a house from scratch in one day. And on top of it, he doesn't think it is a big deal because people in his village used to do such things all the time. Once they enter the cottage, Yulia tells Kurt that he has been offered the post of the director of Royal Magic Technology Research Lab as well as the title of a noble for the magic crystals he created. Kurt can't believe that, but when Yulia asks him about his decision, he decides to refuse the offer because he doesn't think that he is fit enough to command others. Also, he tells her that he is enjoying working as a freelancer right now. And Yulia suddenly starts feeling conscious. She tells Kurt that she got a lot of money from selling the magic crystals he made. But since she had no contribution in that, she took only 1 gold coin as her fee and deposited the rest in his account. That is why she asks Kurt to work for her again so that she can sell his magic crystals and earn the amount she needs in the form of her commission. He eagerly tells her that he found another good spot to dig out minerals and says that he will get his tools ready, but Yulia asks him to wait, thinking that he must be tired. Kurt tells her that he got a full 6 hours of sleep, and that totally confuses Yulia because she doesn't understand how he can do that despite building the cabin. However, Kurt thinks that she is upset because he slept too much since he only got 4 hours of sleep when he worked with the S-rank adventure party. After that, Kurt leads her to the spot he told her about and tells her to not dig any deeper than 50 meters. He leaves Yulia at that spot and decides to keep digging at the place where they found the crystals earlier. A few hours later, Yulia manages to dig a football-sized topaz out of the ground, and she is delighted because now she can earn money thanks to her own efforts. She then decides to check up on Kurt, and this time she is sure that he must have dug a cave already. However, Kurt exceeds her expectations once again, and she finds that he has created a proper mine in the mountain and even put glowing moss on the walls so that it doesn't need any additional light. Yulia freaks out, and just then Kurt comes there with a crate of rocks in his hand. Yulia eagerly asks him how work turned out for him, hoping that he wouldn't give her any more surprises. Kurt tells her that unfortunately he got a lot of useless stones and a little amount of the mineral he was looking for. Yulia is low-key pleased on hearing that, but when Kurt tells her that the useless stones are called myethil, she is completely dumbfounded. Kurt says that in his village they mine so much myethil that they just threw it away, and Yulia feels her mind exploding because myethil is even more expensive than platinum and diamond. She falls to her knees in desperation, but then she asks Kurt what was the other ore he was looking for. As Kurt shows her a piece of the mineral called orchalum, Yulia recognizes it as the legendary mineral that is called the Metal of Gods. She asks him how did he find something so rare in this mountain, and Kurt tells her that orichalum can be found anywhere in the world once you dig beyond 7 kilometers. Yulia doesn't even have the energy to be surprised even more, and she just confirms that Kurt dug 7 kilometers deep into the ground and then returned to the surface in the time it took her to find one mineral. Just then the golden rays of the sun enter the mine through the other side, and she realizes that Kurt dug a tunnel through the mountain while mining. But she accepts that as a very normal thing for him. Luckily, Yulia can use the tunnel as a new path between the village and the nearby city, as it cuts the traveling time down significantly. She decides to let licensed merchants use the tunnel to reach their destination quickly in exchange for a maintenance fee, which would be enough to cover her taxes and expenses. A couple days later, Kurt goes to the city where he runs into Bandana, one of the members of his previous party. Kurt gets excited to see her and asks if the rest of the party members are here too. But Bandana tells him that she has left the party. After Kurt was kicked out, the party struggled a lot in the missions and Bandana knew that they were done for. Then there was another incident where their party leader threw a tantrum after he didn't like the food of the most famous restaurant in the city. He trashed the place and left without paying the bill, and the guards started looking for him. He then ordered Bandana to find Kurt and bring him back to cook food for them at any cost. Bandana took his teleportation stone with the excuse of finding Kurt quickly, but she knew that the party leader was going to get arrested, and since their healer was summoned by the church, there wouldn't be any reason for her to return. However, she doesn't tell Kurt any of that and explains that she was fired, too. He gets upset on hearing this because it means someone like him can never return to the party. He tells Bandana that he looked up to the party leader a lot. And she just scoffs because she knows something that no other member of the party knows. She decides to change the topic by telling Kurt that she is also a freelancer like him. And since they are in the same boat, they should help each other out. She tells him that one of her friends, who is an Meister, one of the 15 master craftsmen of the kingdom, needs some help urgently. She asks Kurt to help them for her sake, and the little pushover can't say no to her. He follows the map given to him and reaches the workshop of the master craftsman, where a cute elf opens the door. Kurt gets surprised thinking that this loli is the Meister, but she introduces herself as Michelle, the master craftsman's assistant. She happily takes Kurt inside as he tells her that he is here to help them on Bandana's recommendation. However, Kurt begins regretting it just as he enters the house because it stinks worse than a bachelor's room. He finds that the entire place is covered in filth, and Michelle tells him that she needs his help to clean it. Kurt realizes that he was called here just to help with the chores and not to help the master craftsman directly. Just then, the master calls Michelle to the workshop and she leaves Kurt to do his job. He immediately pulls out his cleaning gear and within 30 minutes he turns the filthy kitchen spotless. After that, he decides to follow the direction Michelle went in and knocks at a door. A voice tells him to come inside and Kurt obeys, only to find a girl changing clothes. He freaks out because of that, but the girl is completely unaware and defenseless. She doesn't mind Kurt staring at her as he nervously introduces himself, but then he notices a curse mark on her stomach. Kurt grows curious about it and he asks for the girl's permission to inspect the curse mark. He thinks that she is in a terrible shape, but thankfully she is still healthy enough to feel hungry. Kurt decides to cook something light for her and returns to the kitchen. On the other side, Yulia takes the myethil and aurora that Kurt mined to her friend Mimiko, who tells her that the total value of the rare minerals is over 50,000 gold coins. Both of them agree that it is a ridiculously huge amount, and Mimiko begins to wonder how such a monstrous kid has stayed hidden from the world till now. Yulia has no idea herself, but she reveals her plan to make Kurt an Atelier Meister and then become his bodyguard to keep him safe. But the biggest problem in her plan is that Kurt underestimates himself a lot. On the other hand, Kurt has finished preparing porridge for the cursed girl when Michelle returns to the kitchen with her master Ophelia. Both of them are surprised to see the kitchen clean and Kurt apologizes to Ophelia for using the kitchen without her permission. He tells her that he was preparing food for the cursed girl and Ophelia makes him promise not to tell anyone about her. With that, she gives Kurt his payment for the day and sends him off. Feeling careless about letting an outsider like him meet the cursed girl Lise, Oilia then returns to Liza's room, who is her only student. After she helps her dress properly, Ophelia tells Lise that she will test the porridge for poison, but she tells her that it is not necessary because she trusts Kurt. Oilia agrees to her requests and then Lise eats the porridge. She likes it a lot, but then suddenly she starts groaning in pain and falls to the ground. Oilia panics thinking that Kurt really poisoned the food, but as she starts running to find an antidote, Lise stops her. She suddenly springs back on her feet and tells Ophelia that she is cured and shows her that the curse has vanished. Oilia can't believe her eyes because she had been unable to lift the curse, and the rate at which Lise got better is really suspicious too. She immediately heads to the capital along with Lise and goes to Mimiko's shop. Mimiko asks Ophelia the reason she came here when Lise suddenly reveals her face to them, and both Mimiko and Eulydia fall to their knees because Lise is actually the third princess of the kingdom. Oilia explains that Lise's mother was from a neighboring country and she is the only thing ensuring peace between the two countries. She was cursed by someone in an attempt to start a war, but today the curse was suddenly lifted. Oilia asks Mimiko to help her find who cast the curse, but Mimiko is more curious about how the curse was broken. Lise gladly tells them that it was because of a man named Kurt, and both Mimiko and Yulia freak out on hearing that he is involved in this case, too. If you like this video, please consider subscribing and watch the video on your screen next.